your energy and presence, you still have such a softness. Like you have a very feminine disposition and you have a sweetness about you. And so the first thing when I interacted with you, I was like, how is she still in touch with such a softness of spirit, but also like a baller intellectually and like a tech titan? How have you maintained the sweetness of your soul and not been like, hey guys, like I'm Lisa, let's kick ass and code? I don't know. I don't know what that archetype of Lisa would be.
Yeah, no, I had to make a decision not to end up like that.
This is the Ruby Hour. We're breaking into the vault of today's most brilliant minds to extract raw, actionable insights. This show is produced by Ruby Riot Creatives, the Austin, Texas video content marketing mavericks who help B2B and B2C businesses dominate through unparalleled strategic creativity. Chief Cat Herder Shelby Ring is your host. Claws out. Get ready to shred. Welcome to the rebellion.
I was living in San Francisco from 2017 to 2019. I hit this point where I was like watching other women who were in tech and more vocal on Twitter. So there's this woman, she was at Google on like a Google Plus team and got into like all this like the stuff we're talking about. Oh, she's a beautiful woman who just like, you know, all her coworkers were like hitting on her. She ended up being like the lead of like a class action suit against Google, and then had her tech career as like she really wanted to be like the staff engineer. So like in becoming a staff engineer is like this very well paid, like top whatever position. She wanted to be that thing, that recognized, like very valued like tech contributor, right? And so she went out and became like a staff engineer at MailChimp and had a terrible time with it. And like I feel like right now I think her story is sort of like she's in law school now. She did all this law stuff and like I think she was successful in her case against Google, and so now she's like studying law to maybe do the same thing that helped her, whatever. I remember looking at her story and just being like, wow, this human doesn't seem very happy. This was like maybe 6 years ago. I hope she's happy now with whatever she's doing. Like at the time, I just remember looking at it and being like, wow, like, and there were other people as well, like other women in tech that just seemed really bitter, if that makes sense.
Yeah, or like it's like they put the warrior armor on and just are perpetually swords and knives out, full claws.
Yeah, exactly. And they like forget how to have, maybe not have fun, but like what they enjoy, because there is just a lot of like, you know, they call them microaggressions or whatever, like dudes who are like, I only wanted to talk to you because I wanted to sleep with you, or I was hoping this would lead there, but now that it's not, I'm out. You know, it's constant. It's like a decade plus of like that, if that makes sense. And I don't know, I decided, I think I was working at Cash App at the time, and I was doing Bitcoin stuff, which was very fun and cool. I was like struggling with like, you know, normal being on a new tech team stuff. Like, where do I fit? How do I interact with these people? I'm pretty technical and know a lot. And sometimes I feel like I ruffle feathers, and I don't, you know, it's also like artistic stuff. Where you're like, why are all these feathers getting ruffled? Like, all I said was the thing that I thought everyone needed to hear, you know? So it's just like normal stuff. But I was out drinking, and I was like drinking, we were out like at a team thing, and I was drinking a lot. And I realized I was just being me, and I was like saying stuff that I didn't like hearing myself say, if that makes sense. Or it's just like, you know, just bitching about stuff. Like normal, like I'm drunk and I'm bitching kind of stuff. And I decided I didn't want to be that person. So I stopped drinking and ended up deciding I didn't want to be in San Francisco, and that like it was too cold.
I'm going back to hot Texas.
Yeah. Pretty much. And the other thing is like, it was like, you know, like I'm working at, I had just gotten a job in Bitcoin that was an amazing job, dream job, but it wasn't paying really enough money to be like very, like really comfortable. And like, it was like, I was like, could pay my bills and stuff, but I was living in a cold part of town and I wanted to move to a warmer part of town. And it was like, oh, that's going to be really, like, I'm going to have to make some tough choices about money if I stay here, if that makes sense. And the company I'm working at, just looking at the leadership and like what we're building, there's no way that this company is gonna IPO anytime soon. And that's the way you get house money in San Francisco, is you work at a company that has stock options that pays you the bonus. It's not the salary, it's that like stock upside, right? And I had friends that were like at Slack and Dropbox and had that, right? Like they could afford houses and they were buying houses there. And I was like looking around and I was like, okay, like, you know, and I was like dating great people. My dating life, I feel like, was the best it's ever been in SF kind of thing, you know, like it was great. There were all these really amazing people I got to spend time with there, but no like special connection or anything. And it was like, okay, well, I don't want to be this, like, I don't want to be a bitter tech person. I want to be comfortable. I want to be happy. How do I get that for myself without, like, I'm going to, like, make this dream of, like, living in Texas and Houston and, like, having a place in Montrose that I can, like, I'm going to, like, work a remote job and I'm going to, like, own a house on a salary that, like, if this job doesn't work, I can get another salary and, like, like, I will just live a normal life. I will not try and be a tech titan. I will just, like, go take care of my, like, security and my happiness and go somewhere warm and be closer to family and, like, have a house and figure out, like, how to make a life in, like, Houston a happy one, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And, like, I'm not gonna, like, I'll drink every once in a while, but for the most part, I did, like, basically give up drinking and was like, no more alcohol. Like, I'm just gonna be, like, happy human. I don't know. And, like, figure out how to, like, do a good job at what I'm doing, have a life that I can afford, and not be jealous about what other people are making and what other people are achieving and the, like, what other people are, like, getting rewarded for building, etc. Like, I'm just gonna go do my thing. I like what I'm working on. I'm gonna try and make my life, like, I don't know, I'm gonna try and be, like, a happy person. But I had to make that decision. I don't know. I don't think that's a decision a lot of people make.
Yeah. Well, I had an exchange with a pocket of people in this same umbrella of culture where there was this woman that, very beautiful, very attractive, also in the tech space. And she, was like, oh, maybe you can clear this up. We're having a debate. And one of the guys was asking this question around, how do you, like, is it true that all women want is the, like, alpha tech founder guy that's the startup, hero that, it's the next ever, like, that's the only guy that has any worth in these spaces, and the rest of you guys are chump change, and, it doesn't matter about his fitness or the dad bod, like, any of that. That used to be a thing. It's not a thing anymore. And this woman's individual was like, yeah, like, that's what we want. Like, that's it. And it was obviously very disheartening for the young man that was asking that question, because he was genuinely trying to learn and be like, what is my inherent market value?
Right, the market value question.
But just, like, recognizing, like, the person that was leading this, like, pledge of, like, this is the man we're all fighting for and whatever, I just immediately was like, whoa, like, if I was to just appraise this individual, her energy and presence, it was so domineering, and it was so, I was like, she's competing, she's in that masculine, like, I'm here to, like, take ground and opportune, like, it was just, she's in that conquering energy. And it was just like, my bigger question for the gentleman that was like, is this really true, was asking him more of, like, what do you value in the woman or the individual that's by your side? And I was like, do they have to be the smartest person in the room? Because you're a genius. Like, does she also have to be a genius?
Yeah.
And he was like, he stopped and was like, I've never really thought about that.
Oh, no.
Like, no, like, she doesn't. And it would mean a lot to me if the person by my side could see the blind spots of understanding, like, reading, the social cues in the room, because he's like, I miss those. So I just really want a socially competent, kind person that likes me by my side. And I think, it's like, well, that's beautiful, because when you can see what it is that you're trying to go towards, then you can think into her shoes and think, like, what are the things that motivate a woman like that? Because I was like, the person that just told you that, like, it was like, she's competing for your seat, bro. Like, she is, like, that is somebody who's, like, in terms of, like, competition, she is your competition. She's not an ally.
Right.
So it's like recognizing, like, whatever big, like, one-liners that are just, spit out into X and into all these places.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
You gotta just tailor it back into, for yourself as an individual, what makes you happy, and then how do you want to feel when you're alongside your mate.
I love hearing you say this, because it's so good to, I feel like I've, like, kind of, like, been aware of it, but I didn't realize it was people's reality, if that makes sense. So, like, hearing you, like affirm that, like, oh, this is, like, a real struggle. And also, like, having traveled coming back from a big trip, I'm like, wow, this feels so American. Like
Yeah.
it feels so like beautifully American. The like that struggle of like, you know, we don't have class here. We have to like fight for it every generation, right? And like, you know, like SF to some extent is like an arena of like gladiators fighting to like come out as like the next like whatever like kings and gods of America. And being a king or god of America is like, that's it. Like, there's no more top than that, you know, to some extent.
Sure.
So it's like, I don't know. It's just like, yeah, how does dating fit into that? I'm like, oh, that's rough. Like, yeah, it's like,
Yeah.
you're like worried about status and like how the partner status game plays into the money and power status game that is the currency of the realm. And I think a lot of parts of America, you know, like, I feel like I see younger people on X these days talking about this, like, if you're not like, there's like this like, I feel like there's this like paranoia in like the 20s crowd, maybe even like early 30s, about like, if you're not above the wealth curve, you're never gonna get over it. There's this like widening thing happening in America where like the middle class is gone and you're either like on the side of gods and kings or you're like suffering with the masses, and like act now and like take your shot because like you have like 2 weeks left before the AI completely destroys your ability to like find a mate or like be happy in this life or something. It feels very American in a way that like I haven't. Maybe there's other people that like kind of pull into that paranoia, and it's very focused in San Francisco.
I could see that. Because it's obviously that gladiator ring you're describing. It's just like these battles of the minds and who's got the next best concept and positioning and wielding. But it's like all of those things. I mean, I'll speak in I statements. It's like the biggest things that I look for in my partner is like, I want to be both held and free at the same time. So it's like I want to feel
a hard one.
I want to feel the fortitude of like this person. Like my girlfriend's, I called it the dark alley test. If we're going down a dark alley, if I can kick the robber's ass better than the guy next to me, we have a problem. So it was like that was an important thing of the ability of a man's competency just on a baseline protection experience. So that was a skill acquisition of like be able to hold your own territory. I think that mentally and in an embodied state for men, and just the things that, you know, again, this is an echo, like I don't know what it's like to be in men's shoes, but the things that I've learned is like there's such a you know, it's like every day men wake up and they're going to war. They're going to war to defend their, you know, who are they in the world, and do they have a right to hold the space that they hold? And it's like, I certainly never saw my world through that type of lens. If these young men that are trying to develop their own territory of ultimately their own expression of a kingdom to offer to someone who, if it's
that
a
they
value,
have to defend and like hold on to, and it's like a constant battle to do that. Yeah.
So it's like, you know, for that type of experience, it's like, okay, the things that are important for me to understand as a woman, you know, that changed my worldview. Because I think at one point I heard all that stuff around like men now have to clear at least like X amount of six figures, and they gotta have property and a six pack and like all the things.
Yeah.
And
trust fund, right?
Yeah, blue eyes, finance, yeah. But it's like just recognizing like what are the things that you quantify to yourself that are valuable, and then because it's a personal answer for everyone. Yeah. Like my best friend, she's like, I don't need my guy to like go like ninja karate chops on some like, you know, person in a dark alley. I just need him to like hold his own in his own way, but he doesn't have to be this fighter archetype. And recognizing like what are the things to you as an individual that are just your own brass tacks of like, this is the yin to my yang, like these are the two things that let me feel free. And so it's like for me to feel held by a mate, there's a baseline security I want to feel physically, financially, and also like if you dollars and cents figure out what does the financially look like. Because it's like, it doesn't have to be like the dude with the private jet. It's just like, did this person build an infrastructure of financial responsibility? Because, I mean, I had dated somebody that, was in his 50s and was like, what is he, he's a great person, like, loved spending time together. But as we moved closer and closer towards one another, he had nothing to directly show for himself in terms of any financial stability for, his world. And the closer I got to seeing under the hood of his circumstance, of his life, because that's what you do is, when you're deciding, will I move in with this person? Is this becoming serious? There was obvious attributes of there being a frivolousness with his own responsibility. And for me, I opened my first Roth IRA when I was 23. The moment I understood anything around financial intelligence, starting to build infrastructure for myself that's, that I'm going to be okay, regardless of the mate in my life. And so to be with someone who's plus 15 years, my senior, and doesn't have infrastructure, and he's further along on a timeline of, like these,
He had 15 years of building that he didn't do.
So it was like, this isn't just magically going to flip a switch, and, there was no get rich quick scheme for any of that. And it was ultimately like, how we do anything is how we do everything, right? So it was like, if there's pockets like that in this one area, and just starting to see in that one individual's life, like, I'm getting data that's making me recognize like the future that I have been building for decades for myself, our tangents are not aligning, and that's okay. And I wish you the best, and I'm thankful for what we've shared. And it was just a beautiful experience.
Yeah, but it's like, but I have to find the person that's got infrastructure that I can
because it's a reciprocation. I think that's the balance in my, Shelby's brain with 2 cents, everybody's got it, right? It's like just that ability to feel held and secure, but then the also feel free is like, on the free side is it's the identification of like, I know myself, I know rituals or protocol. If I feel jealousy, rage, if I feel these like basic emotions, particularly tying into my partner, that I have infrastructure of problem-solving skills to regulate myself.
Yeah.
So instead of being the jealous girlfriend that just pops off because she saw you were liking somebody else's Instagram post, I'm going to go slash your tires and go on. Instead of that base type of experience, recognizing I value these communication skills and my own nervous system, being in touch with myself enough to realize if somebody is running around, what are the things I'm responsible for, and vice versa. But it's those baseline skills that I also look for and expect to be matched in a mate, is the ability to problem solve together. So that's where the
fun.
From.
That makes sense.
Because then you realize I'm sniffing out a long-term compatible partner. I mean, I am very blessed of many of my long-term partnerships, have been with exceptional individuals where we grew together and we grew one another. And the ability to just recognize intrinsically when you're met with the same types of values and the way you move about the world, when you can align with someone that they have talked the talk and walked the walk for themselves in the shit that's important to them. Because to me, if I had my, $1 billion, I wouldn't have my McMansion. It would be little shacks in all different spots around the world, and being able to share that type of experience. So, reducing down into what are the things that you quantify in how do you want to feel, embody by your person, not just I don't know, she's super hot, she's a little psycho, but I don't know, she's so hot, dude, how can I walk away? It's just, that's what other people's perception is
of relationships. Yeah, I think so. This is where my Myers-Briggs, whatever pill I took a few years ago about Myers-Briggs starts popping up. It's one of my friends in Houston really got me into Myers-Briggs during pandemic. And so I guess I owe a lot of it to her for helping me figure out this is how to see the world. There's when you said that your Myers-Briggs is ENFJ, that second letter, the N, that one means that you really like frameworks and more problem solving and like are more creative, it's probably one of the reasons you ended up in like the gifted and talented program is because you are high end, right? Like you really like, you know, whatever, like the frameworks and understanding how people work and like figuring that out. Like I'm also very end, like I love the systems and the frameworks. And like when I think of relationships, a lot of it is about problem solving and like, how do we have fun together? Like, what kinds of conversations are we going to be having? That's the thing for me that I think of like a good relationship is like, I want to keep talking to this person forever. That was like, yeah, I think that was like the one time I had like a really strong connection with someone. It was like, I would have dreams about talking to this person. That was like that was like the pinnacle of like the like intellectual like relationship, if that makes sense, at least like for that one. But I think that like, you know, the other side of that Myers-Briggs thing, the end, that's the intuitives, they really like ideation and how the world works and that kind of thing. Then you get on the other side of that, you get S's who are more, S stands for like sensing, right? And sensing is like, it really is like, how pretty is she? Or what kind of food does this person make me? Or how big of muscles do they have? Like it's the sensory objects of a person becomes like that person's reality, right? So it's like, you know, how good do they look in a dress? It's like, that's a sensory experience of a person. And you know, people who are more on the sensory side of the Myers-Briggs, and I think it's the majority of people. So most people you meet, their experience is what actually is in the world, not the conversations you can have about it to some extent. And so a lot of the times when I hear people talk about what they like or value about other people, it's always, for me, I'm always like reminded, like most people are S's. So most of what they're evaluating is going to be that sensory experience of the person. How do they smell? Like, what's it like waking up? I mean, you know, these are all nice things in general. It's not that intuitives don't also appreciate those things about people, but it's not the core experience of a relationship for us. And so one thing about Myers-Briggs that's really interesting is, well, generally speaking, N's and S's don't date.
Yeah. All my closest people are they're usually an NF combination.
Okay.
It's so funny.
Yeah.
What about you? Who are your people that you tend to be around?
You know, I'm an introvert, so I feel like having friends is more of a recent experience.
Oh my gosh,
not like,
so cute.
but like, you know, like I'm on the internet a lot. I feel like I've just like spent all my time on X for like the last who knows how many years. Or I have like, you know, groups of friends that I like I'm more of a community joiner. Like I've always had that community that I spend time with, but when you have a community, you don't always have like the close one-on-ones, if that makes sense. Yeah. But I think that most of like pretty much all my friends are like N's, like all of them. Being friends with an S, like it doesn't work. We speak a different language. Like it's we just like don't, I don't know. Yeah.
I gotta have activities with S's.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You know, it's like you want to throw rocks together.
Yeah, or go to like, I feel like S's love music concerts. When I think of like, you know that like
ACL Fest is a bunch of S.
Well, I think like the majority, like don't get me wrong, like I love going to a good show, and I love dancing, I love it, but I don't think that's something that I necessarily like was born into. I feel like I had to learn to like it because it is a really enjoyable experience. But I think that like, I don't know, I'm like the experience part of it, right? So you have to have experiences with S's because that's how they
literal types of
the sensory experience. You know, it's like, oh, if I was organizing something and I wanted to attract S's, I would think, like, for me, I would be like, let's go like paddle boarding, right, on the lake, or like go to a picnic with some really great food, or, you know, I don't know. Such a nerdy way of thinking about people, but it's useful, I feel like.
It's so useful. And it's so, I mean, my ex-husband, I was married when I was younger. I think he was an INTP.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Or he was an
I gotta say, so like one thing that I really like when I meet EFs, I'm like, your energy, I could eat it. Like it's like it's kind of like they call it like so Myers-Briggs come from Jungian types of personalities. So there's like this whole thing about the shadows. I haven't read a lot of Jung. It's like on my to-do list to like read more because I think it would be cool to know more about. But I feel like the opposite of the INTP is like the ENF.
Yeah, and it's also because you also have the perceptive and the judging, that, you know, how we approach action, like that's very complementary. It's not overkill of like, because my joke for my personality is it's like I'm really good at like ready, fire, aim, back. So I need my friends that have that time to take a lap and consider the data and ponder a little more. It should stand for ponder, because I feel like that's
Yeah, we do that. We're really good at that. The daydreaming, like sitting around, like
yeah, the contemplating. Whereas for me, it's like the joke is, the like, oh, we're both hungry. What do we order for food? What do we order? And it's like the P's are like, I could do like some Italian. Maybe should we do takeout? Sushi sounds kind of nice. Maybe let's do IHOP. No, let's take a lap. I need to think about it again. Like it's like whereas it's like the J is like, which we eat. I don't know. Italian. Let's do it. Like it's just to get it done.
Yeah.
And then figure it out. Like think about, oh yeah, you get really bad indigestion. It's just like, I'm fucking hungry. Let's do it. But recognizing the way the different people orient towards different like approaches to things and values, like that's so it's a nice vocabulary to understand different personalities.
And I think it really made like what I found with like, so I think like, I think there's like Myers-Briggs, there's like layers to it. And I think like the layer, like you were just saying, values, I feel like once you figure out like Myers-Briggs kind of is a description of how people experience or make decisions in the world. And it's cool because once you kind of understand like what people are experiencing and how they're thinking about what their next moves are, you kind of people's values sort of like rise out of that, right? So what they value, like, if you're a really sensory person, you're probably going to value like a really nice gourmand meal more so than the person who just wants to have a great conversation over like a sandwich and a cup of coffee, right?
Yeah.
So like all of a sudden you get like this understanding of like what the values landscape is across people, which honestly, like I think understanding Myers-Briggs really helped me be more empathetic towards people that are not like myself. Because I'm like, it's like kind of like how you were saying earlier, like, oh, like that guy just really likes his girlfriend because of how pretty she is. Like that's so shallow. And it's like, yeah, that is really shallow. But like, maybe this sounds bad, but it's like, but maybe that's like the depth of experience that particular person is like, locked into because of the way that they experience the world. Like that is the whole experience.
Yep.
I don't know.
Yeah, that makes me tie into like so much of new souls versus old souls will describe. I mean, like tying it into people, I don't even know what line of thinking this is of the whole like multiple reincarnation, your karmic soul. But it's like, different people have, like, I can also think of friends that from their family of origin, if they're like second gen, third gen Americans and their parents or grandparents, like to hear immigrant enforced priorities where it's like, get the job, be the doctor, the lawyer, or the, just like I've heard so many of these anecdotal stories of my friends that, they had the tiger mom or like these different stereotypes of just the expectation of success and how hard it was drilled into like, you are stewarding the legacy of what it took for us to get here.
Wow, so that's a lot of responsibility.
Yes. And so maybe having the pretty arm candy is a 10 out of 10 in terms of family pride and checking the boxes of this is the ultimate because of the circumstance of my life.
Yeah. Relationships are like, there's so many variables to it, right? And it's like, it's not even, I think one of the things, and like, maybe this kind of ties back to the conversation about you're talking about that guy who met that like tiger like woman, like the very aggressive woman who was just like, yeah, no, I'm only gonna date the kings and gods. So if you're not one of those, you're not on my list, But I feel like a lot of who you decide your mate is kind of a community decision in a weird way.
Say more.
Like what you were saying about this, you could be an immigrant, and so like getting the 10 out of 10 like really hot eye candy like girlfriend or wife is like the highest peak of what you want for yourself to some extent, because that's like what your community, your family, your like legacy is like saying is like the right thing to do, right? Whereas like this guy in San Francisco, like he's like, what are women looking for? Like what is like the community value system that's going on here? And they're like, oh no, gods and kings only, I don't know. When I went to Fiji last year for a friend's birthday party. It was a great trip.
Sounds amazing.
It was really great. It was really awesome to get to spend time there and hang out with my friend to celebrate his birthday. I think he turned 50. Anyways, I'm like, I hope I don't get that wrong.
50 seems like an appropriate Fiji birthday number.
Exactly, yeah. But when I was there, I went to a local temple. I can't remember what, maybe Hindu temple. Temple thing. Okay. And like wandering around, just looking at it. And I feel like there's a tour guide who's explaining what each of the little there's kind of like buildings. It's like a complex. There's like different shrines for different things. I don't even remember what the main shrine of this one was. I feel like sometimes they have different and kind of like intentions that they're honoring at that temple of like, or part of whatever. But one of them was like I don't know, for some reason at this temple, it occurred to me that like who you would get married to in like the Hindu culture, like it's assigned marriage, right? Or there's a different word than assigned. You know what I mean?
Yes, arranged marriage.
Arranged,
yes.
Not assigned, arranged, yes. There's this whole like arranged marriage like thing, right? And so that kind of became like, I don't know, I started thinking about it. And the arranged marriage stuff in Hinduism is like kind of through the religion, right? Like there's like matchmakers that like look across like the scope of who's available to be matched, right?
Totally an ENFJ.
Yeah, I would hope so. I would hope so. But like I was thinking about it, and I was like, this is a really important role for your community. The person who's figuring out like what pairings, it's almost like, I don't know if you've like they do and they talk about like this like secret sect of women that like plan how to like breed certain people to end up with like the most like powerful like leader of the whatever.
Yeah.
Over, they call them the Ben Gesserit or something. It's but so that's like but if you think about it, Hinduism kind of has that going on with this arranged marriages thing, except it's across all of society, and they do it based on what caste you're in, right? Like you don't marry across caste.
Yes.
So they have these little pools that they're allowed to like master plan what the next generation of society is going to look at, and they do it at like a societal level, right? Is my understanding.
Yeah.
So this was like the thought I was having at this temple. I was like, holy cow, that's deep. Like, whoa. They're like, but like, I don't know, but it's like that's like community matchmaking planning at a level that we don't experience in the West, right? Yeah. Like that's like the level of like, okay, who your partner is going to be based on pure community, like purely what's best for the community.
I'd be so scared to figure out who people would choose for me,
right?
You know,
but like, I mean, if you think about it, it's like a good matchmaker can probably do like a reasonable job at picking someone that's like acceptable, right?
Yeah.
Maybe not like soulmate material, but like fits whatever your particular criteria are.
Whoa.
Yeah.
What would be your criteria to let a matchmaker know if you had like
that's a hard one.
top fives?
It's like I feel like one of the things I struggle with is like admitting that I need a partner, because I've been alone, like kind of on my own, doing my own thing for a really long time. And dating people's always just been kind of this fun way of like, I don't know, not being lonely. That sounds terrible. But I guess if I like, it's like, okay, who am I going to build like the next generation of like, whatever crypto citadel with? I feel like the thing that I have trouble respecting people that can't hold their own in society. That sounds weird.
So break that down.
Like if I'm going to go to like a party where there's like, maybe like kind of like, you know, different people from like different, like kind of like almost like being at court.
Yes.
It sounds weird, but like, you know, like showing up at court where there's like everyone, like you have to be presentable in the sense that you need to be nice and polite and able to like hold your own in a conversation and not embarrass me. That sounds terrible, but like
they're like not a professional nose picker.
Yeah, or like you can like you're not, I feel like there's like a class of people where they're like, I don't want to do small talk and small talk is beneath me or whatever, and it's like small talk is what keeps societies together. Like this is an important thing, you know? Like I feel like that would be like kind of a base, like I don't know. Yeah.
Okay, so number one, you'd be like, Miss Matchmaker, my number one quality is I do need a mate. So I do have to admit,
I have to admit that.
I need one of these people you're gonna bring to me. So that's number 1 of 5. Number 2, he cannot be a professional unemployed nose picker.
Yeah, he's kind of like made something of himself, maybe to some extent. I also think like the problem solving piece is a big one. Like if I'm gonna like be busy doing something, I need to trust you to be able to figure it out, if that makes sense.
I like that. Versus someone being like, I don't know, like it's broken.
Yeah.
And they're just eating bonbons, watching Bon Jovi.
Right? Like you didn't call, like there's no expectation that they would necessarily be the one to like be the Superman for every situation, right? But it's like, well, what's the plan?
Yeah. So mentally being able to track with problem solving in y'all's immediate home environment, logistics, and infrastructure environment.
Yeah, because I mean, I do that stuff a lot, but I think that if I was with someone who just like was always being like, well, what's the plan? I'd be like, I don't, this isn't.
Be like, yo, I tapped out.
Yeah.
I clocked out from work. I'm not here to do this.
Partnership is we both figure out how to solve the problems. I don't know. And then I guess the other one is like the conversation piece, right? Like, has to be interesting enough to talk to forever.
Yeah. Forever. That's so good. You could just get a deck of these cards that just springboard open-ended questions.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah. It's just, you could bypass. Maybe the matchmaker lady's going to get, she's going to get someone.
Such an F thing. The T in me is like, oh, saddest memory from your childhood. I'm like, oh, I don't want to tell anyone that.
Yeah, I pulled a series of these in case, it's just, I like to put these cards on the table for my nervous guests that if you ever feel that the conversation, if you're just being pelted with questions, you can pull one of these and ask me a question as well.
Oh, I like that.
To be like, I want to drink some water really quick and hear you run your face, then that's it.
That's a great thing. Also, talking about feelings is such a Myers-Briggs F thing.
Oh my God.
T's don't do that. It's fine. It's
I'm never
going
to ask you what the saddest memory is from your childhood to air to the public.
Oh, that sounds like torture.
But
Why
also,
would we do that,
like,
Shelby?
what is my saddest memory from my childhood?
I also don't want to think about it. I'm like,
no.
I'm like, no. Like, I'll think it later. That's not,
All right, wait, I'm going to pull one.
Oh, no, okay.
Opened up the can of worms.
This is a funny, it's cool. What's the question?
What was your first job?
Oh, I don't know. What counts as a job?
First time you were making money from delivering a service.
I want to say I sold stuff. When I was in kindergarten, I made stuff and sold it to did I sell? I think I was selling stuff to classmates. I was making cheat tables for multiplication quizzes, like the 12 by 12, like like the little grid.
I'm very familiar with
that. I made them and I sold them to some friends.
You were an enterprising
I think I was like in
smuggler.
kindergarten or first grade. I was like really young, and someone got caught and she like pointed to me and I was like,
Basic.
Idiot.
Yeah.
Not a good partner. No kidding.
You're like, I'll feed you to the fishes.
Kind of, I don't know. I was so I think I'm still super transactional, but I was so transactional in elementary school. It's sort of insane. Yeah.
Like, were you just like, this equals that? Like, you're like,
I don't know. I think I feel like I was such a weird kid.
Weren't we all?
Yeah, definitely.
I'm like, I don't know.
I was also like, I've always been, I think, overly attuned to social standing and social situations and like how to like negotiate or play with them in some extent. So I want to say like either kindergarten or first grade, I realized they were like the popular girls.
Yes.
And I wanted to like hang out with them at recess once. So I negotiated my position in line in exchange for getting to hang out with them at recess for like a few days.
Wait, how did you broker the deal? Walk me through.
I remember standing there and feeling like someone's like, do you want to switch positions? And I was like, kind of like, no. Not without like.
Were you standing in the lunch line? What line was it?
Yeah, I think we were standing in line to leave the classroom. Maybe we were going to lunch. That seems like a place we would go.
It's a high value place, like placement matters.
I guess so. Yeah, I don't really remember why, but like they wanted to stand next to each other because they had a friendship, and so I was in the way for whatever reason, and I was like, well, if you want me to move, make it worth my time, to move. As a kid, what was I doing? I don't know.
And then what did they retort?
I don't remember the whole conversation. All I remember being is like, they were like, well, what do you want? And I was like, I want to hang out with you at like recess. Like, I want to try being like a cool kid for whatever, for like a thing. And they're like, yeah, okay, sure.
And then how did it go? How was being a
I think I was bored.
Recess? You would be bored.
I was bored. They hung out on top of it and we were like hanging out, and I was just kind of like, it wasn't like, what am I doing here? But it was just like, I don't know how to keep up with these conversations of what they're talking about. And like, okay, this was fun. And I feel like they invited me back the next day. Like, I don't think it was a 1-day thing. Like, I think I hung out for like 2 or 3 days, and then it was just like, either I lost interest or it was just like got weird, or like, it just, yeah.
So then you like came back with cool glasses and you were like, sorry, I have no interest in hanging out with you guys.
I think it just like, it wasn't sticky.
Yeah.
I don't remember if it was like I don't feel like they were like, we don't want to hang out. I think it was like, it was a mutual, just like, I don't think this is going to work.
Ooh. Okay,
I don't remember exactly how it fell apart.
Of your best friends in elementary school, what were some of the high commodity offerings of those friendships? Like, for example, Justin, that was in my first grade class, he had a horned toad. So I wanted to be friends with him to meet his horned toad.
Interesting.
And I did get to meet it. Yellow, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that is cool.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Who were the kids that you were drawn to?
I was the weirdo. I like hanging out by myself at recess and stuff. Or I'd like kind of like hang out, like tag along when people are doing interesting games and stuff. But for the most part, I was like a big loner. I couldn't figure out what I wanted from other people.
Interesting.
Like, I guess it was like the social, like I wanted social recognition. That was the thing I negotiated for, apparently.
That's pretty gangster.
It's like I feel like the other thing I remember like being proud of, one of the things I was proud of in third grade was knowing everyone in the class's name.
Yeah.
Like there's 130 of us.
My God. Wait, the whole class.
Like all third grade, I feel like.
That is extremely impressive. Also, what mind can memorize? Like, I'm like, what kind of child were you to be able to retain?
I just wanted to know everyone. I don't know. What was I doing? I don't know.
What did you do with that knowledge?
I just said hi to everyone.
You were just like, Brittany, looking good. Jason, you're doing great. Hey, Tito,
no, I wasn't an
it?
extrovert. I was just like, I just knew who everyone was, and if I wanted to talk to them,
you were like writing it in your diary.
No, I don't even think. No, I didn't take note. I didn't do any of that. I just like wanted to know who everyone was.
Carve it on a tree.
No, I don't know.
Graffiti on the back of a stop sign.
No, I'm very like, I think this is like the introvert problem is like, I just want to know what the system is of the social. I wanted to know the social system.
Gosh. Whoa.
I was just like obsessed with it, even super young. Yeah.
What was your favorite recess activity though? Like, did you like to kick rocks?
Oh, I like climbing on the jungle gym to get as high as possible. And like being able to like, yeah, I love climbing. I love being up high. I love climbing on. We had like, you know, like I think these days they're like banned in like 50 states out of 50, but like the like metal bars that were like way too high.
Oh yeah.
With like dirt on the ground. Yep. But so much fun.
Yeah, my best friend definitely broke her arm playing on those the mega tall monkey bars.
Yeah.
Very well.
So good. And like the ones that you could like go across. Oh my God, so much fun. I love doing that stuff. I feel like at one point I had my own private clubhouse that was like at the top of the tall slide, and there was like one other girl that hung out with me. And now when I think back on it, I feel like I was probably not very nice. Like I feel like I was just like weirdly, I don't know.
You were like in your internal space, like interacting with her from a very like closed off environment.
Yeah, I think so. But I was glad she was there. It was like cool, but also it was kind of felt bad, like, you know.
Yeah. It's the trend now where it's like you exist in the same room together, not directly interacting with the same thing, but you're just cohabitating independently.
Yeah, but it was cool. Someone wanted to be in my clubhouse, I guess.
Like that.
Wasn't sticky, but
dang.
Yeah.
All right.
Tried a lot of stuff when I was in elementary school, I guess. Well, I mean, in terms of like social dynamics.
Okay. What was your favorite or most successful childhood elementary school student dynamic?
I don't think I had one.
I have a good one. I remember I was wearing my limited 2 zip-up jacket that you're supposed to wear with a long sleeve undershirt. I just liked being slutty as a child, so I didn't have an undershirt, and I dressed myself. I mean, it was just this whole thing of like I was a little independent woman in elementary school, but I was wearing my
just wanted to go with
I was wearing my zipper thing so I could seduce whoever, you know, James, with my non-existent tits. And I just remember my best friend Miles came up to me on the playground and like took the zipper and pressed it into my skin and then zipped it down and zipped it up, and he zipped all my skin.
Oh no!
And it was excruciating.
Oh,
and then I was like the rest of the day, and it scabbed, like it was nasty.
That's awful. I'm so sorry.
That was a bad social dynamic.
That was really bad.
But, you know, I was whoring it out. You know, I don't know.
It's kind of funny that happened. You know, it's like you were trying to be a little slut.
Risque.
A little risque, like just trying that.
Yeah, and then I got my sternum zipped up.
The universe was like, not today.
I remember, like, one of the other guys, like, now I'm thinking of these, like, playground dynamics.
Dude, it's such a thing.
One of the guys that was in my gifted and talented class, who was so smart, like, he was smarter, but he was intellectually smarter than everybody, but we just, like, always had, like, some type of beef, like, I would just make up a problem, but I just remember he would be like, you cannot defeat me, and he had double jointed fingers, and so he'd be like, try to push my fingers back, and I remember being by, like, the wood play skyscape that you could climb up, and I would push his fingers back, and his fingers would bend all the way to the back of his hand.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, yeah, and he'd be like, it doesn't hurt me at all. And it made me so mad. So he just was, I think he's just hella double jointed, and who knows. Yeah, freaking Michael. Just those things that we like remember. I was like, damn it, why do you gotta be so smart? And you have double bendy fingers? Why do you have all the good traits?
All of them.
Yeah. I think he tried to tell everybody he was an alien. Boy. I think he's actually turned out to be a very cool person. That's the thing that I want to do, is like host a reunion of Quest, like of that community, to be like, how did everybody turn out? Like, there's one guy that we refer to him as Smurfy. I have been trying to find him on social media for like
unsuccessfully.
And it concerned, like, I think about him at random times, and I'm like, is he okay? But also, like, I don't know, maybe he's just super cool and didn't go on any social media. But, you know, they're like, where are they now?
Yeah. And it's funny, your friend Michael, the guy, the alien guy that you couldn't defeat, maybe he turned out cool because you were his friend, you know, or that because he got to, this is the weird thing. I like have these weird thoughts about, like, the socialization of the nerds is such an important thing. So as someone who's like building a nerd school, no, but and like, well, I run conference. Most of what I spend time on these days, I wish it was on the school stuff. I feel very behind on that. We didn't do like any classes this year, and it's almost over. But I've been doing conferences for nerds around the world, bringing all the Bitcoin nerds together. And I don't know, I'm always like, it's always interesting to be like, okay, I feel like there's nerds that got socialized in good environments, and they do amazing.
Yes.
And they have like, they're just like they know they're weird, but it's okay they're weird, and the distance between them and the rest of society doesn't feel insurmountable in a weird way. That sounds strange.
Yes.
Like, you know, so like programs like Quest, or like I was in the Gifted and Talented program and had a great time. Also managed to find all the nerds in college. Like I was in honors programs, and then like went to this like Recurse Center hacker school thing, and like managed to find like the Gifted and Talented program for programmers. And I feel like that's why I've been so successful, is like I found this crew of like the G&T kids in programming, and every once in a while I'll run into a G&T, like a gifted, like, you know, that kind of nerd in programming who like didn't find that crew, and I'm just like we gotta get you plugged in, like you are like you could end up on the dark side if we don't make sure that you get like the right friends and influences in your life, because you like, I mean, like, it might sound weird, but I actually think that it's like in tech, I've dated guys in Silicon Valley that like, they're like, I'm like, why are you working on this tech? I feel like it could be bad for society if we zoom out for 20 seconds. And they're like, well, if I don't build it, someone else will. And I'm like, what? Like, but that's not a good reason to do something that could be the destroyer of worlds. Whoa. Like, why don't we do something? There's lots of other things we could do in the world, not that one. And they're like, but someone else will do it that's not me. And I'm like,
should you be building it?
Yeah. Maybe we should not do it, and also try not to let them do, you know, like, I don't know. I think it was some AI stuff, which now I feel like is completely cat out of the bag sort of situation. Sure. Sort of, I don't know. But I'm still just like, I don't know, it's just that kind of attitude of like, if I don't build it, someone else will, and they'll get the credit, and I could have done it, and will like forever regret not being the one to let the like horror out of the bag. And I'm just, what if we didn't build horrors in the first place? Like, we have that power to decide our destiny. What if we use our power to decide our destiny instead of just feeling like we must do the thing or else someone else will? I don't know.
Reactive building, like, I'm going to do this thing because it could be happening, so I'm going to respond, versus proactively create what it is that they want.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. And I'm like, I feel like if you don't have the right, like, influences in social circles, and you fall into like the dudes who like, I don't know, have their own reasons for wanting these things to exist, you just like, you kind of lack that, like, I don't know.
I think that when you describe like, the dark side in the tech world or the tech space, like
nihilism.
Well, the other part of it is like, what's the stat? I'm completely going to butcher it. It's like men from like 28 to 38 are the most vulnerable demographic for suicide.
Oh, no.
And I completely, because the metrics and how that's a coming of age moment for young men to where's my kingdom? Where's the things I'm building, growing? Are they valuable in my community? Am I just like a lower level management person and my job sucks and this thing keeps happening? Like, it's just the way that, from how I understand, if men every day wake up and they're like, I gotta take ground every single day, I need to go out there and it feels like I'm going to war, then it's like, it's so intense. And I've had tons of conversations on this show about, like, how do we let young men thrive, because so much of the Me Too movement, the feminists, like some of that space, it's made it an environment where men don't necessarily have a place anymore in some context.
Yeah, it used to be you could maybe take over your dad's store, or like you would do what your dad did, or there was like a war that needed you, your country needed you.
Yeah. And we have it's the lost boy syndrome.
We don't have a country that needs our men anymore. We're building drones to like not replace them. Like, and men need to have a place in society. And I don't know that all of them, like, not everyone's great at like having to figure that out for themselves, right?
Yeah. And it's just how do we bring back the sacredness of masculinity, of like, how do we appreciate, like, men are the most generous, like, caring people. Like, when I finally can see it through the lens of what men do every day to create an opportunity of, like, help somebody, offer something to somebody, build something, solve something, like, it's
really coming from a place of generosity and building it further, but usually for their tribe, right? Or their like,
and so it's
society.
Just like, I love like the place that I'm like, where my heart is. I'm not looking at dudes through a lens of like, sexual market value or any of that. I see the hurt behind the guys that say like a lesser me would have just dropped you at the wayside. And it's like, that there's a number of reasons that person is speaking from that place. And it's probably a lot of repetitions of being put down by women, by other men. Like, there's not a place that's just like, dude, you as you are, like, you're killing it. You're doing great. And like, you're valued for it. And I appreciate you for that. That's more of the conversations and the exchanges that I want to see, is like less of this like tech chick that's all Botoxed out. That's like, I'm coming for your seat, bro. Like alpha, or like whatever, take a lap. Like, this isn't, I don't know, like, it's just a big dick measuring contest. Like, and it's like, that's not the type of world I want to live in. Like, I want to live in a world where men are cherished and women also. Like, I think that women, we've done an incredible job of like, women now, we're seeing how strong women are, how like resilient we are, and like the full spectrum of, raising families, working jobs. Like, often many women are doing this solo and still going through that. Like, we've come through an era of appreciating and validating women's experiences. And I think that it's a beautiful thing to start prioritizing also, to the extent that men suffer, women suffer. Like, definitely. When they're put down and kicked to the curb, like, there's a part of inherently like masculine attributes of, men wanting to like provide, like they want to provide solutions, like they want to kick ass, they want to be the hero. And when it's no longer seen as valuable because anything you can do, I can do better, and that's the tone, it's just undermining like men's inherent like beautiful worth of like, this is such an incredible like generous well that they pour into the people around them. So it's like, I want to create and lead with my own behavior in a way that like allows and thanks men for like their masculine coming online. It's, like, I've had conversations around the old, like, a man opens the door for another woman, for a woman coming through, and the women going, I can get my own door, and la, la, la. And it's just like, I want to live in a society where women, like, I love those gestures. Like, I love, like, my dad, like, even though the nickname for him is like RBW, like raised by wolves, like, he just, he had a hard life, but like, I can see through the lens of, he always took care of my car for me.
That's
like
great.
Always. And even, I've learned to embrace that now. And like, we just changed my oil together.
Yeah.
but like just the way he expresses love is through action.
Yeah.
And so understanding like a man may not be like, hey, I wrote you this sonnet this morning when I was contemplating your beauty. Like, if that's not the guy, like, what are the actions that he's doing for you? Or, you know, like, what are the behaviors?
Right.
And consider that. And when a guy wants to pick up a check and offer some gesture of like, you know, it feels good for me to get to provide this meal and this time together, receive it. And be like, God, you worked so hard to like
be able to afford this. Like,
like just like receiving the real action and not just being like, well, yeah, but like he like changes oil at Quick Lube. So like, who cares? Like any of that behavior is like off. Like that guy worked how many hours to take a beautiful woman out and express a gesture of care and whatever it costs for him to do that, like to acknowledge like, it's the actions that are just, it's beautiful.
And it's awesome that, like, you know, that there's people that want to provide that for us as women, right? If that makes sense. That, like, want to be, like, work all that time so that they can get you dinner, you know?
Yeah. It's just, it's like, how do we just learn to have the eyes to see the different actions and like what is it for men to express care and then what is it for women, like how do we express care and then how do we receive it and vice versa for men.
Kind of feels like for me like learning about how the Myers-Briggs stuff, like, you know, it's just like, oh, different people have different values. It's like, oh, wait, genders are like that too, right? Like there's this whole other axis of like the values and like realizing that guys have different value system. I feel like it's something I learned so late in life. And it was like, oh, this would have been really useful to know like a decade ago or, you know, like, like I get it now. Like I get what's going on here. And I think this is kind of where like, you know, like, so my mom got remarried, God, probably over a decade ago now. I don't know. But one of the things about her relationship is I feel like her and her husband have like these really almost like not scripted, but like well understood roles of like, these are the things. Like it's almost like, I don't want to say like contract, but it's like
it's an agreement.
Almost have like an agreement of like, I will do this and you will do that. And this is like, we like have roles. Like they're like literally like roles in the relationship. Right. Cool. And one of the things that like watching that kind of like seeing that dynamic between them started me thinking about is like, oh, like there used to be these generalized roles that were like pretty cookie cutter and like everyone to some extent was expected to like fit into them. Obviously like there was like the outlier edge case where they're like, this doesn't work for me, and that I feel like they kind of like destabilize the whole system in some ways. But you can still go like conservative places where like those roles are like almost still very clearly defined and it's like, this is how you will relate to this other value system which isn't yours, and this is how like we as like generations of humans have figured out how to like reconcile these two like value systems across the gender divide. And these like roles that we've written down is at least within our like community how we've like kind of like made like figured out how to like pass that down so that both parties get kind of what they need out of the relationship, right? That was like my understanding of these roles. It's like these are like kind of the historical things that genders have needed, and we've written these like rules down because that way you don't have to like learn it from first principles. You can just like follow the rule book and 99% of the time you'll get a decent result, right? And I feel like we kind of like have veered away from gender roles within the last, and this is kind of, I think, like this whole like, you know, as we've decided we're going to call it the tragedy of gender, like book or whatever, like, you know, that like, and this is where, again, I feel like I need to do a little more research into exactly the writings of like the women that were at the forefront of this last is of feminism, but I feel like we kind of did like be like, roles are stupid, we're throwing them out. And now everyone is like at this point where they're like, but men in particularly are like, I don't know what my role is. Like, now we all have to write the rules from scratch, and it's like that's probably not the most efficient way to build society. I don't know.
Well, and it's like, I think that the messaging in this last, let's say, 15 years has been like, men have to feel their feelings and they have to learn how to communicate their feelings, and they got to think about their feelings and then express it, and then they got to play to the little boy inside of them. And it's like, and we just made an entire society of men a bunch of little bitches. You know, like it's just like this realm of like the men's work that's just turned into, you know, it's made a soft component, and just that space, I'm like, there's more. It's always felt like there was meant to be more, and I'm seeing now. I mean, like, I've had some friends come on the show that are doing that type of work of just like bringing back the value of like men are, you know, they are warriors, and we need that type of, you know, just like that savage energy.
And like they need to be fearless.
Yeah.
And they need to go, and like this is, you know, I think like it's interesting if you look through like ancient cultures, the rite of passage into manhood is like something that is like replicates like having that process where you like have to go through some trial or tribulation, you come out the other side, you're a man, right? Most women, they don't have that for women.
Yeah.
It's like you get your period, and that's
that's our coming of age
it's
cycle.
biological, right? Whereas men have this like they have to have an experience, like they have to like prove their own courage to themselves, let's call it that, or something, like that, right? Yeah. And I do think like there's probably a reason that was a thing that like got replicated across lots of different cultures, right? And that was the thing that like men need to be able to go through the experience of figuring that out, and like how they handle courage or whatever, or, like, you know, but we don't do that anymore.
Yeah, it's a displaced era for sure, of just bringing back rituals that like validate men in the context of other men,
right?
That they are, you know, like they hold the space that they're in, you know, they can command their own space.
But what gets so complicated about this, I feel like, as a woman who works in masculine spaces,
yeah,
what gets complicated and difficult and hard is when that societal function of place and belonging and like hierarchy gets welded to the career and like what are we doing as a society, like how do we earn a living structure also. And that's when it gets kind of difficult as a woman who wants to do things in the world where like men are trying to figure out how to sort themselves and do hierarchy and do it within corporate structure. And that becomes the arena for that.
Yeah, which is so dangerous, because then your ego and yourself is your role.
And it becomes very difficult as a woman and like super masculine. So you like step on egos all the time, and you like hit on that fear of like, oh no, I'm getting replaced. Like I'm not needed. Women don't need me. This like tall, gorgeous woman who's brilliant, like is gonna like, I have nothing to offer her. Like, and now I hate her. No, I don't know. Like,
no, this is also relevant of just the workplace, the day and age of.
Yeah. But that melding of the work and the social function, I think, is where a lot of the stress around like what is women's role in the workplace, et cetera, comes from, at least in my experience.
Yeah, that's very true. I feel like you would know.
I don't know how to fix it though, is the thing. I'm like, I don't know. Like, it's like we almost need like, okay, maybe we go back to like kings and like the hierarchy is just like this rigid fixed thing, and men know where they are in the hierarchy. And it's like, how do you divorce that from work though? I don't know that you can. Like, I don't know. This is why I guess the tragedy of gender is such a good, I feel like, title for this. Like,
yeah. Well, I think that also like the other side of it is that men now. Well, and for women, we've stopped being tribes directly, and the infrastructure of like, I'm caring for a little one and I need a moment to myself. There's not a like, I'm going to put my baby with, you know, these 4 other babies that are around the same age and we're going to rotate as moms. Like, that's no longer a thing. Yeah. Childcare is $40,000 a year. I got to now somehow pay for that. And my ex and I, like, we didn't get along. So I'm a single mom, and like, what the I gotta work 80 hours a week and be a mom, and it's a perpetuating broken system. When we can build agreements in our partnerships that truly let each person's whole self come online, quirks, desires, all the spectrum of like, this is how I'm optimized to do really well in my life. I think that it's the freedom from both parties to empower and make the right, you know, hey, this is the checks and balances that you get that desire met, and also like I feel safe in the exchange that you're wanting to create or you're wanting to have, or this doesn't work for me but I support you in this thing. Like, this is the time more than ever to have great communication skills where we drop where like I drop my ego and hearing something that's like that is I'm doing what, or like I need to work on this part of who I am in this partnership, or you need more of this, like, and it's being able to build your own hybrid of masculine and feminine. And you have to write your own rules within each container, because the existing rules that our world is operating by obviously suck.
But like, I think that can be really hard work, right? And I don't think that's work everyone wants to do.
It's true.
That's part of, I feel like, almost like partner sorting, is like finding a partner that's interested in that work, right? And interested in participating in that kind of a relationship. I don't know. Like, that's like, I feel like that's kind of the whole thing, is like finding the person that wants to play with you in the sandbox of your own making. And is it a sandbox that you're going to build together, or is it a sandbox that like is the general known sandbox? You know, is it like how much of like,
I love that.
what kind of sandbox is it?
Is
like,
it weird
are you building your own sandbox? Yeah, like, you know, the toys in your own sandbox might not look like everyone else's, but like it's yours, and that's what makes it yours, and you built it together. But I feel like one of the difficult things is that like this sort of like there's not really any clarity that that's what's happening or should be happening in the dating market, if that makes sense. And that there are like there are the people that are looking for the standard pattern sandbox, and then there's people that are like looking for a different thing. But it's like also, you know, like when you're going through the process of figuring that out, I feel like it's kind of hard to know which of those options is going to be best for you, you know, like I don't know, people's journeys are all different, right? I feel like to some extent what journey you end up taking, like, you know, journeys can lead you different places. Maybe there was one journey where being in the standard sandbox is going to be fine, but that's not where you're going to end up. I don't know.
Like, I think that's also valid of like our sandbox desires evolve as we get deeper and deeper in experience. Like there is no trade out for experience of realizing like, oh my God, like I don't like sex parties, or like sometimes like, you would never know until you find yourself in a position where you're like, okay, this is a hard stop. I'm not in this. I'm not at all.
Yeah, but like, I mean, it's so, I mean, I haven't never been to a sex party, but
I'm like throwing like the worst, like,
no,
you know.
it's like I think it's something that comes up though. I feel like a lot. It's like at some point in your life, in your 20s, depending on
especially
where you are.
Today's day and age. They're like, are you like non-monog, like consensual? All the
so much of that. I don't know. I feel like so much of how you end up in stuff is like kind of like your personality and your type, and like kind of almost goes back to that Jungian, like how much integration of the shadow have you done? Like, are you your full self, and is it your full self that you've like integrated with, that you're using to like try and figure out where you belong?
It's also recognizing, like, I think for each chapter of, let's say, our evolution into our expression in the world, we can constantly match with someone else that's on their own respective tangent on the same level. It is just acknowledging what are the things that you really want, and then the other side of it is like, in every partnership there is going to be the suck. There is going to be the things that are hard, and it's the things that your mate is bringing to the table. So the key is choose your hard wisely, because you cannot avoid it.
Right.
But it's acknowledging what is the thing about this person that is like stretches me and parts of myself that I didn't know it could have broke me. There always will be a hard in a partnership. Choose your hard wisely and acknowledge, like, I am signing up for this.
To it, right?
Yeah.
You're like,
So
okay, we're going to work through this.
Hard, then you're like, this is my moment to take a walk on Town Lake with my, friend I didn't find on Bumble and air my laundry out, but not do real laundry, and just be able to balance out. But choosing your hard, it's critical. Lisa, this has been amazing. I feel like we've covered a number of different topics and territories. How can people get in touch with you, connect you, find out about your upcoming teaching conferences, any of the things? This is just a shameless plug moment.
Yeah, time to show my stuff. Great. So you can find me on Twitter. I'm Nifty, NIFTYNEI. I'm also on something called Noster, which is the new Bitcoin, like, decentralized social media thing. So you can find me there. I run conferences around the world. They're called Bitcoin Plus Plus. So that's BTC plus plus on Twitter. I'm not the best at posting stuff, introvert here. It's really hard to externalize everything that's going on inside. Yeah, we're going to have our next conference in February down in Brazil. We're doing it in Florianopolis. I'm very excited about it. First conference in Brazil for me. So,
Cool.
yeah, it's going to be really fun. That's in February. And then for the Base 58 stuff, if you want to learn about Bitcoin from a technology standpoint, specifically like how transactions work, I have some classes on Udemy, and you can find that and my admissions for classes on base58.school. So that's on the internet.
Well,
Thanks.
thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having me. This is great.
We specialize in strategic content campaigns that generate more qualified leads to make your small or mid-sized business more money. Get a full-fledged media department for a fraction of the cost of an in-house creative director. Email heyruby@rubyriotcreatives.com to get started. Until next time, live a life with stories worth telling.